Ano nga ba ang buwis o tax? Ito ay ang binabayaran ng mga individual o mga negosyo by means of paying the part of their income patungo sa gobyerno. This can be generated from the goods, products, and services that we consume and purchase each and every time. Ang taxation naman ay isang sistema kung saan ang gobyerno ay may power to take the amount of money needed sa kanilang nasasakupan in order to spend and support it to the relevant needs of the economy. Ito ay para maging intact ito at firm. By imposing of compulsory taxes on individuals or entities of the government. Taxes are levied or collected in almost every country of the world. Ito ay ginagawa primarily to raise revenue or kita para sa government expenditures, katulad ng education, health, defense, building infrastructures, at marami pang iba. Now let us hear it from Mr. De La Cruz for us to know more about the history of taxation and its importance.
And next is the history of taxation. It all started from the ancient Filipinos, where they paid their taxes to their datu for the protection they gave to us. The tax was called buwis, at ang lahat ay kailangang magbayad ng buwis o tax except for the datu's households. And in 1521 to 1898, when Spanish arrived in the Philippines, they started to improve taxation here in the country, where ages 16 to 60 years old are required to pay the King of Spain 1 peso per year. But in 1884, the tribute was removed and was replaced by the cedula, o ito ang katunayan mo na ikaw ay isang taxpayer and it needs to be carried all the time. It was followed by the 1987 Philippine Constitution. The rule of taxation shall be uniform and equitable. At noong ating naging presidente ay si Presidente Rodrigo Duterte, ay kanyang ipinatupad ang train law, which make the tax system more simpler and fairer. Ano nga ba ang kahalagahan ng tax sa ating gobyerno? Alam kong lahat tayo ay naiinis sa taxes, but with more tax collections, the government will be able to widen the use of our taxes in development programs and projects and to provide more economic benefits to every Filipino.
Now, let's proceed naman sa principles of taxation. In principles of taxation, we have fiscal adequacy, equality or theoretical justice, and admin feasibility. In fiscal adequacy, under this principle, taxation power must be exercised enough to fund the government needs to be adequate. Meaning to say, yung government, hindi niya pwedeng i-exercise ang taxation power kapag hindi ito sapat or sobra siya. Dahil kailangan ma-meet ng revenue yung demand ng public expenditure. Next is equality or theoretical justice. Under this principle, taxation power cannot be exercised as abusive because kailangan nakabase siya sa equality. Meaning to say, the taxpayer should pay based sa ability niya to pay, hence the ability to pay the principal. It means that the taxpayer burden should be proportionate to the taxpayer's ability to pay. And last is admin feasibility. This means that in the exercise of taxation power, it should be feasible enough to be implemented and to be monitored. For example, ngayon yung BIR or Bureau of International Revenue ay ini-implement yung electronic filing and payment system. Dahil kailangan ng taxpayer yung mas convenient na way for filing and paying taxes. In addition, Ms. Higit will discuss the taxation doctrines.
And for the taxation doctrines, it indicates necessity, lifeblood, benefits protection, and jurisdiction over subject and object. First is necessity. Under this theory, taxation power exists out of needs, meaning to say we have a need. We have a need to support the government. We need to raise revenue to support the action programs of the government. Next is the lifeblood. Under this jury, taxation power is considered as the lifeblood of the government. Kung walang taxation power, ang ating government will be paralyzed without the funds needed to operate it. For the benefits protection theory, it underscores the principle that the individuals or the citizens o tayong mga Pilipino na nagbe-benefit sa government, and that is the incumbent for us to pay the government for the protection that we enjoy. This is based on the symbiotic relationship between the people. And lastly, jurisdiction over subject and objects. Under this jury, the government can impose to anyone and everything or anything under its jurisdiction. That's why the overseas Filipino workers, although they are not taxed in the Philippines for their incomes abroad, however, pag bumalik sila sa Pilipinas, they will be subjected tax also. Halimbawa, if these OFWs have properties in the Philippines which enjoy benefits from the government by means of protection, then itong mga properties na ito are also subjected. Prosecution, are you ready to begin?
Yes, Your Honor. Taxation law in the Philippines covers the national and local taxes. First is the National Tax Law, which is the Republic Act No. 8424, or also known as the Tax Reform Act of 1997. So ano nga ba ang batas na ito? According to RA 8424 Section 2, it is hereby declared as the policy of the state to promote sustainable economic growth through the rationalization of Philippine internal revenue tax system. This includes the tax administration, providing an equitable relief to a number of taxpayers, creating a robust environment for business to compete in regional and global market, as well as ensuring that the government is able to provide for the needs of those under its jurisdiction and care. Ang lahat ng national taxes kabilang ng income tax, value-added tax, excise tax, documentary stamp tax, at iba pa ay ipinataw at kinokolekta ng national government through the Bureau of Internal Revenue or BIR. Hindi lamang taxes ang kinokolekta ng BIR, pati na rin ng mga fees, charges, penalties, fines, and etc. decided in its favor by the Court of Tax Appeals. And now for the local tax law, Ms. Bernales, the floor is yours.
For the LGU, we have the Republic Act 7160, otherwise known as the Local Government Code. It was enacted into law transferring control and responsibility of delivering basic services to the hands of the LGU. It aimed to enhance provision of services in the grassroots level as well as improve the efficiency in the resource allocation. Ibig sabihin, binibigyang karapatan ng lokal na pamahalaan upang magpataw ng buwis sa kanilang lungsod ng patas at nakaayon sa batas. Ang mga tax na makukuha sa iba't ibang amusement places tulad ng sinehan, concert hall, circus at iba pa ay pagsasama-samahin para sa ikabubuti ng publiko at mga taong nasasakupan nito. Maaaring gamitin ang mga taxes para sa infrastruktura, mga health center at iba pa. Makikita ito sa Section 129 hanggang Section 130 at Section 140. Bakit nga ba mahalaga ang Local Government Code sa pagpapataw ng tax? Kasi, according to the policy of the state, the territorial and political subdivision of the state shall enjoy genuine and meaningful local autonomy to enable them to attain their fullest development as self-reliant communities and make them more effective partners in the attainment of national goals. Isa itong daan upang makapamuhay ng malaya at matamo ang fullest potential ng isang lungsod, pati na rin maging epektibong katambal sa pag-abot ng mga proyektong pangnasyonal. Your Honor, I call the 4 witnesses.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am now going to explain to you the first step of internal revenue taxes. Income tax. The term income tax refers to a type of tax that governments impose on income generated by businesses and individuals within their jurisdiction. Ang personal income tax ay isang uri ng buwis na ipinapataw sa sahod, sweldo, at iba pang uri ng kita ng isang individual. Samantala, ang business income tax naman ay mai-apply sa mga korporasyon or corporation, pakikipagsosyo o partnership, maliliit na negosyo, at mga taong self-employed. Income taxes are a source of revenue for governments. They are used to fund public services, pay government obligations, and provide goods for citizens. By law, taxpayers must file an income tax return annually to determine their tax obligations. Pero ano naman ang income tax return? It is a report that a person sends to the government about the money that he or she has earned and the taxes that he or she has paid in 1 year. Ito ay isang pamamaraan ng pagkalkula ng income tax or Income Tax and Reconstruction Special Income Tax at para malaman kung magkano ang buwis na dapat mong bayaran. Hindi lahat ng buwis ay otomatikong ibinabawas. Sa ibang kaso, may mga pagkakaiba sa pagitan ng halaga ng buwis na nabayaran na, katulad ng withholding taxes at mga tax na kailangan pang bayaran.
We will now proceed to the next type of national internal revenue tax, the indirect tax. Indirect taxes are those taxes that can be transferred from one person to another person. It is not levied directly to the taxpayer's income but on the expenses incurred by them. Napakaraming example ang indirect tax. Nandyan ang value-added tax, percentage tax, custom tax, and many more. Kinokolekta ng gobyerno ang tax natin through suppliers or manufacturers. Ito ang government, supplier or manufacturers, then tayo mga consumers. Hindi tayo directly nagbabayad ng tax sa government. Ito ay dumadaan pa sa supplier or manufacturer bago mapunta sa kanila. So, an indirect tax is like a middleman between the government and consumers. Let's talk the indirect tax in the tourism industry. Tourism is trade, tourism is export. It involves the buying and selling of services and goods with compensation paid by a buyer to supplier. Ibig sabihin, ito ay part ng customs taxes na ang ibig sabihin ay ipinapataw sa mga imported at export na produkto. Kapag nagta-travel tayo, bumibili tayo ng mga goods or products sa mga supplier sa ibang bansa, which is yung tax ay kasama na din sa price ng product na binabayaran natin. It means hindi tayo direktang nagbabayad ng tax sa gobyerno.
What is excise tax? In my understanding, the excise tax ay isang tax na nagbe-base sa goods, services, tsaka purchase tulad ng tobacco, alcohol, gasolina, and luxury goods such as jewels and perfumes. Ito rin yung nagre-require magbayad ng tax by increasing of their sales, products, and can also harm our health because of the tobacco and alcohol. Pwede rin si makina kailangan natin sa buhay tulad ng gasolina. Sa sobrang taas ng minahal ngayon ng gasolina, marami nagko-complain sa atin dahil pataas ang gasolina. Also sa sales ng mga products bawat company or businesses. Tulad sa SM department store na nagsasale sila ng 3 days up to 40-70% of the selected products only. Marami businesses that can give their products as long as they choose only the selected items of their products. All these things in once in our life, magtataas talaga every business or company. Dahil sa excise tax, again, excise tax is legislated tax that is imposed within the government infrastructure rather than international taxes.
Lastly, meron tayong tinatawag na Documentary Stamp Taxes or DST, which is a tax on documents, instruments, loan agreements, and paper evidencing the acceptance, assignments, sale or transfer of an obligation, right, or property incident thereto. The amount of tax is either fixed or based on the par or face value of the document or instrument. Depending on the value of a transaction, the amount of DST payable can be quite significant. The applicability and payment of DST will therefore have implications for accounting, bookkeeping, and tax compliance for businesses in the Philippines. Kaya kung ikaw ay isang owner, founder, or manager who intends to enter into a transaction in the Philippines or with a Philippine company, make sure you understand the potential DST obligations and liabilities that can arise. Ang tax na ito ay binabayaran ng sinumang gumawa, pumirma, or who is issuing, accepting, or transferring the documents. Ngunit sinasabi rito na whenever one party to the taxable document enjoys exemption from the tax, the other party thereto who is not exempt shall be the one directly liable for the tax. At documentary stamp tax is not a unique tax to the Philippines dahil ito ay common tax applied on transaction documents by various countries worldwide. So now let's proceed to the taxpayers.
Your Honor, the taxpayers include individuals or corporations who has different obligations to our government. The Philippines levies a tax on foreign profits of its citizens. A person who is self-employed or performs any profession ay responsable na magbayad ng income tax whether sila ay residente or resident alien. If foreigners and non-residents naman, whether or not sila ay Filipino nationals, ay malalagyan lamang ng tax ang kanilang income generated within sa ating bansa. For corporations naman, if it is a local company, magkakaroon ng tax ang kanilang mga overseas earnings. Sa kabilang banda, if foreign company or firm naman, magbibigyan lang sila ng tax sa kanilang revenue generated within our country. Our taxes will go to the government money na gagamitin sa pagpapagawa at pagpapaayos ng mga government infrastructure for Filipinos both inside and outside the nation.
OFW is not included in the taxpayers of the country. According to the Revenue Regulations Number 1, 2011, by its definition, an OFW is a Filipino citizen employed outside the Philippines and is physically present in the country in order to perform work, which means binabayaran sila ng kanilang employer na nakabase sa abroad and not borne by any entity or employer in the Philippines. They are already being taxed in their country of employment. That is why they are exempted sa pagbabayad ng buwis. And for them to consider as an OFW, required sila na mag-register sa Philippine Overseas Employment Administration and for them to receive a Overseas Employment Certification, which is a proof that they have registered in POEA.
As a tourist, we should know the taxes that we paid on our airline tickets, consumed goods, and etc. One example of this is the travel tax. The travel tax is a levy imposed by the Philippine government on individuals who are leaving the country irrespective of the place where the air ticket is issued and the form or place of payment, as provided for by Presidential Decree 1183 as amended. Pursuant to Section 73 of Republic Act No. 9593, 50% of the proceeds from travel tax collection shall accrue to the TIEZA, or the Tourism Infrastructure and Enterprise Zone Authority. 40% shall accrue to the Commission on Higher Education, or CHED, for tourism-related educational programs and courses. And 10% shall accrue to the National Commission for Culture and the Arts, or NCCA. How much is the travel tax? Taxable individuals may be charged the full travel tax, the standard reduced travel tax, and the privilege reduced travel tax. As a tourist, I need to pay tax. It is a fee imposed by the government for Filipinos traveling abroad. The full travel tax is 1,620 for passengers on economy class plane tickets and 2,700 pesos when flying first class. As stated by Presidential Decree 1183, Philippine citizens have to pay the appropriate travel tax regardless of the place where the airline ticket is issued or the form of payment.
As an owner of a restaurant, I also pay for taxes. Here in the Philippines, between 10% or 12% tax for restaurant and hotel accommodations, while no tax on certain foods and goods listed by the government. Tourists may be faced with a wide range of taxes. They may be required to pay an entry tax or an exit tax when visiting another country. They may be required to pay a carbon or noise tax as part of their air ticket. During their stay, customers will be charged taxes on a variety of transactions, including hotel rooms, restaurant meals, souvenirs, vehicle rentals and advertising, missions to visitor to attractions, tourist businesses such as hotels, Travel agencies and vehicle rental agencies are subject to the same business and property taxes as non-tourist businesses. One of the specific examples of taxation for these is the rate and base of Tax Republic Act number 842 per section 108. It's stated here that there shall be levied, assessed, and collected. The VAT shall be equivalent to 10% of gross receipts derived from the sale or exchange of services, including the use of lease and properties. The gross receipts is the total amount of money work constructively received during taxable quarter for the service performed or to be performed for another person, excluding the value-added tax.
Tax is a vital source of revenue for most governments,
enabling them to fund essential services
and infrastructure for their citizens.
So kung tatanungin ka,
Ano ang ambag mo?
Ang sabihin mo, I am a taxpayer
At tayong lahat ay may ambag.